Well, how are things generally going on the LNC since you guys took over? You know, you have your first in-person meeting since you took over. How are things going for you?
Yeah, so we technically had an in-person meeting in Reno, and our
Ah,
first
yes.
actual in-person meeting is this weekend in Alexandria. It's going great. What I'll say is that we are not a hive mind. We've actually disagreed on quite a few things, as you'll see on the business list, but we have a very professional working relationship so far. Everyone trusts everyone for the most part, and most of us came in on the same slate, so some of that's natural. But even where there's disagreement, we don't try to coup affiliates like they tried in your state because of
Yeah.
dissension or things like that. We work together well, and we're just trying to do our best to spread liberty any way we can. It's been fun to really do outreach so far in terms of the Bitcoin community. We had that fundraiser, didn't
Oh,
raise
that
the
was great.
it was great. It didn't raise the target funds, but I love building bridges with that community because that's one of the things that has been so lost from the party. And that is one of the most important relationships we can build. We've also done a lot in terms of ballot access, fundraising. More than 600 new members signed up in our first month since the Reno reset. And the finances look really good too. Todd just put out
Yeah.
his treasurer's report. So things are going really well, and I look forward to see what this weekend brings. There's going to be a lot of discussion there, and we've also sorted out some things like recognizing the purged Delaware affiliate. The people that were purged from their state party for daring to call for a special convention. So we've tried to right some wrongs, push liberty in a better direction, and work on the nuts and bolts. Campaign season is big. We want to get behind the candidates that we have right now, and there's some real opportunities across the country. I'm really looking forward to election night, seeing like what you and Jeremy do up there.
Well, did you hear about the polling?
I
So,
don't
so
think so.
okay, so check this out. Check this out. The Democrat running for governor polled on my name. And apparently I am polling currently at 8%.
That's
So I don't know.
fantastic.
I was like honestly like a little blown away by that, but I was also very exciting. And so I also have to thank you guys because you guys gave like the LNC gave Jeremy and I $5,000 to finish up petitioning to get ballot access, and we finished, and we're getting everything certified right now, but it does look like we will have ballot access. So that was really great. So we definitely appreciate the support there.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's an obvious place where there's great candidates and just probably the best libertarian culture. And I'm betraying my own state. Tennessee has a great libertarian culture, but the free state, it's hard to argue. And I can see why Dennis calls the remaining 49 states the authoritarian 49. It always cracks me up. But you guys have your own culture going, and there's no one that's living more free than you guys up there. So
It really is amazing. But I'm also really glad to see the LNC is working well together because one of the big concerns I had, and again I think this is probably coming from like my organizational psychology background, or maybe just because I got thrown into the fire because like literally a month after I joined the Libertarian Party, the New Hampshire coup happened. And so
right.
it was like from that moment on up until like the national convention, it was war. It was a constant war every single day.
Welcome to the party, Carlin.
Well, I mean, it was a blessing in some respects because honestly, I learned so much. Because it's like people outside the party, like I don't think they understand. So I'm mostly speaking to the audience right now. Like like when that happened, you were watching all the LNC meetings. You're watching Karen Ann Harlow's talk about the intricacies of Robert's Rules of Order. You're learning all the players, and you're learning like what libertarians do. It's kind of like a snaky game of chess where they go through and nitpick all the bylaws and find loopholes in things, and then you have these other teams that are trying to figure out what loopholes they're going to find so they can put in countermeasures in place. It is a constant game of chess, and it was stressful for a lot of people, so I don't want to make light of it, but it was also fascinating. But it was also like there was just one war after another. There was New Hampshire, and then there was Delaware, and then there was Massachusetts, and then there was something going on in Arizona, something going on in New Mexico, and then the Pennsylvania thing, which was like kind of controversial in terms of like just how the delegates got elected and all this stuff. And it was like one of the all of this is to say, like, one of the things I was really worried about when the national convention was finally over and everything was set and we won, was I was really worried that people were going to be so used to fighting that they wouldn't stop fighting, that they would just constantly be looking for that fight. And it was almost like I would read the LNC like public business list every day, just like it almost felt like you're waiting for a pin drop, like when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And it just hasn't yet. And I think that that's really great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of the time ahead of us in 2 years. It's hard to know what the future brings, but I do have faith that this group is going to work together well. Trial by fire, so welcome to the party. I'm glad you stuck around, Carlin, because a lot of people would have probably turned their head and walked. But, it's unfortunate that a lot of like the party business sometimes comes down to amending the bylaw. And, Dave Smith mocks this a lot by saying, he'd rather, do anything else than have an amendment to the amendment of a bylaw. And a lot of that, hopefully will go away. I mean, that's always going to be part of the national conventions, but really outwardly, now we have a chance to bring, the most proud radical form of libertarianism that we've always wanted to bring. This has been a 4 or 5 year long fight for a lot of us. I came back into the party around mid 2010s, and, the organizers in the Mises Caucus have, worked really hard to put together kind of an agenda on what we want to do. And I was elected by a lot of Mises Caucus people. I have to represent people that aren't Mises Caucus. Fair enough. There's some good natured criticism of what we're doing, and there's some bad natured criticism of what we're doing. I just have to do the thing I think's right and in the best representation of our region and move forward. So we do have opportunities.
No, definitely. And there are people out there, and I'll, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege, Dave, because there are a lot of people out there that they think that I joined the Libertarian Party as some sort of grift, and predictions have been made that I'm going to bolt over to the Green Party at any moment. And I really don't think that those people understand the absolute bonding of the last year of hellfire that has been not only, definitely in the LPNH and the New Hampshire Mises Caucus, but I think nationally for the Mises Caucus just in general. And one of the things I am just like, I am so impressed by Michael Heiss. I went to some of those organizing meetings when we were getting ready for the Pennsylvania convention and then for the national convention. And so I saw his level of leadership, and he was doing so much more behind the scenes than I think I even have any reference for at all. And it's just like, I was so proud of him, and I was so proud of every Mises Caucus person that kind of stepped up, and everyone was so on point, and everyone was just doing the things they needed to do. And it was like, again, and this is probably the organizational psychologist in me, but I'm so used to dysfunctional organizations and just seeing people fight each other, that to see this community where people were like legitimately working together and rather selflessly in so many respects. Like people spent thousands of dollars to go to the national convention just to be able to take over the party and to win together. And, it's such an incredible thing. And, I understand that, you guys have to represent interests outside of the Mises Caucus. And I think that that's fair and appropriate because, but one of the things I really love about the Mises Caucus is I think they are very principled people that if you have valid arguments, they'll listen. It's just they're not going to do any of this underhanded snaky nonsense where they're trying to make the party like the woke progressive left. It really is about appealing to people who want libertarian principles.
Yeah,
Am I right about that?
Oh, totally. People would actually be pretty surprised about like how much internal disagreement there is in terms of strategy and priorities, even in the caucus, by the way. But yeah, Heiss is as indispensable as Dan Smots. That guy's my brother. We haven't always agreed on everything. We didn't even agree on who should be the vice chair, but it's like, whatever. He's an amazing organizer. And one of the things that he brings up that I always come back to is how infectious the Mises Caucus culture has become. And you didn't just see it this year. You saw it, last year at the Mises Bash in Pennsylvania. You saw it at this year's Pennsylvania convention as well, where those Mises get-togethers after the convention and stuff, it's just full of hugs and fist bumps and, being super on fire, excited for liberty in ways that I haven't seen since the Ron Paul Revolution, because that's what we're doing. This is the new Ron Paul Revolution. And I want that kind of cultural bond to spill over into the rest of the party. And I think we got that started. I want that to be how the whole party operates, because you can't deny, even the biggest kind of anti-Mises person cannot deny how infectious and how much solidarity there is in that culture.
It's so true. And I think one of my favorite photos from the national convention was when Ron Paul was speaking in that room where you couldn't hear anything for most of it. But when Ron Paul was speaking, there's an amazing photo from the side where you just see like, just hundreds of people just surrounding him and standing, and just like everyone is just so quiet listening to what he has to say. And I thought, I was like, that is such a wonderful moment. Like Ron Paul, I mean, I don't really talk about this that much, but like I remember the Ron Paul campaign in college. Like that was something that got my attention. It didn't pull me into the Libertarian Party, but I definitely was paying attention to it. And, I agreed with a lot of the ideas. I just wasn't thinking politically at that time. So that didn't do it for me. But like, it was such a wonderful moment. It's almost like a passing of the torch. Like you guys did me proud. And it was very moving for me to be there to see that.
Oh, totally. And Smots' video for that they premiered,
so good.
It put me on fire because when they both said, an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government in unison, it was powerful. That was a great video. Passing of the torch for sure. You had all the best activists and best spokesmen for our ideology there. That was probably the best Liberty event I've ever been to by far. And it was incredible to be a part of it, especially kind of to win a representative spot in kind of a movement that's venturing in that kind of libertarian direction.